Hi, welcome to the final episode of this tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to use a content provider to store favorites data. What you're going to do is head over to the description section and copy and paste all the code from my movie provider class into your own movie provider class. You can make a new class by going here and hitting new Java class. And the reason we're copying and pasting this code and not going over it is because a lot of it is boilerplate code that is it doesn't do much, and you don't really have to know how the code really works that well to be able to use it properly. All you have to really do is make sure here in provider name, you change this to your own name. Make sure the first two are the same as your package name, and then the second two is provider.movies. And then this code basically creates a database. These are all the elements, all the attributes of each element in the database. And over here is the command to create the SQL database. So again, these are all the attributes of each element in the database. So each movie will have its name. For its name, we're going to have the poster path. We're going to use the poster path as its name. Overview, title, all this stuff. So just know that this class creates a database with all of these things for each element. And now, how are we going to make this a content provider for our app? Well, we head over to the manifest, and we're going to copy this provider name. We'll name it movie provider. And we're going to define the authorities attribute and paste that over what we copied from before. Alright, now we're going to use this content provider. So head over to detail activity, and here's the code that is activated when you hit the favorites button on a movie. Here's the comment, code to store movie data in a database. So we're going to replace this comment with the movie data. Should automatically import this. So for the name of each value, we're going to add the poster. And we're going to do this accordingly for each value. So this one will be overview. And then we'll change these accordingly. And then we're going to store these in the database with this line, get content resolver. Now what do we want to happen when we unfavorite a movie? Well, we want to delete it from the database. So this is much simpler. If the text is already equal to favorite, then clicking it will unfavorite it. So this code is when we unfavorite a movie. Put the address of your content provider here. And then for the second parameter, what it's going to do is delete every single movie with the title that equals third parameter is the title that it checks for. So what this line is going to do is loop through or go through the entire database and check every single one's title. And if the title is equivalent to here, this third parameter, the detail activity fragment title of the current movie we're on, it's going to delete that. What you could do is set different conditions. For example, you could have if the title is equivalent to detail activity fragment dot title or poop, then you'll also delete it. But here we're just having it if it's equal to title. Alright, let's head over to the movies fragment. So we're storing and deleting the content from our database. Now we just need to do something with that content. So here we're going to have a load favorites data method that just loads all the favorites data whenever we're in the main movies fragment. Here we're using the same path that we used before of our content provider. Converting it to URI. We're going to query the database. And the last parameter is what you want it to be sorted by, so it's going to be sorted by title. And you can look these up. Each of these parameters allows you to query the database in a different way. But this is what we want to use for our purposes. Instantiate each of these as an array list. We can delete this. So we have to create other favorites data. So we'll have it's the same thing except it's for favorites. That's why we have an F after it. And this is going to be a array list, two-dimensional array list for the comments. So let's go back down and instantiate all of these. This one's going to be a two-dimensional array list, the comments. And apparently we didn't declare the reference to overviews. Oh, it looks like we already did dates. This one should be ratings. Anyway, you get the point. So, we're not done with the method yet. If the cursor is null, we're just going to return out of this method. Exit it. If not, we're going to go through the cursor value that we retrieved from the database and retrieve all the data from that cursor. So it's going to loop through every element in the database. And to the posters, it's going to get each of the names. Because remember, for the name of each element, we had the poster path. And we're going to do this for every single one. And for favorited, we're going to add true to every single one, because if it's in the database, then it's favorited. It's automatically, we know it's favorited if we're retrieving it from the database. So for each element of the database, we're going to add a true to the favorited array. And we have to make a new method here called convert string to, because for the comments we want to get it in an array list format, but we store it in a single string format, so we have to convert the string back to an array list. If you remember how we stored it, go to your detail fragment, and how did we store it? For each comment, we added it to the overall review, and we divided each comment with the string divider123. So this can be anything you want. We call it divider123. So in our convert string to array list, where we convert it back to a string, or back to an array list, we're going to use some regex to just convert it back. And there we have it. So where are we going to call this load's favorite data? Well, you might think that we want to only call load's favorite data if we're on the favorited page or on the favorited setting screen. So if we're sorting by favorited movies, that's when we call it. But no, we want to know even when we're not sorting by favorited movies, we want to retrieve the favorites data so we know which movies are already favorited to give the user the option to unfavorite them or favorite them again. So we want to know which movies are already favorited and unfavorited movies, and that means regardless, we need to call load favorites data in onStart no matter what. But then you'll ask, in load favorites data, didn't we just go through the entire cursor and add favorited to true, adding a true value to every element in favorited? Doesn't that mean when we go here into our on item click listener, every single movie it goes into will automatically be favorited because we're passing true in for each one? That's why we have to create one more method. We have to do one more thing. We can take this out. See here, we automatically added false to each one. We're going to take this out. And to decide which movies are true and which movies are false for the favorited option, we're going to use the method bind favorites to movies, which we'll create in a second. But we're only going to use this method if we're not sorting by favorites. If we are sorting by favorites, we're going to do the same exact thing, just not call the method. Because this block is executed if we're not sorting, if we are sorting by favorites, which means we don't have to modify the favorites at all. Because in load favorites data, every single value has true already in it. So let's make our final method bind favorites to movies. And what this wants to return is an array of booleans for the true or false of each movie, whether it's favorited or not. So we're going to loop through every single one of the titles first, the non-favorited titles, just the regular titles. And we're going to add a false value. So after this executes, we'll just have a full array list with false for every single movie. Then we're going to loop through the favorited titles. It's an enhanced for loop. And within that loop, for each favorited title, we're going to loop through all the non-favorited or regular titles. And if they match, if the favorited titles equal the regular titles, or if the favorited title that we're on then we're going to set it to true. This is an if statement. Alright, let's test this code out. Something's red still. Oh, we forgot to return the result. Okay, so before we run this, we just have to fix a couple things, a couple mistakes in the code, or things we forgot to put in. First thing we're going to fix is the detail activity fragment. Here we just forgot the quotations around the string, so that was causing an error. Here we have if it's not sorted by favorites, we do this, and if it is sorted by favorites, we forgot to add the f onto all these variables for the favorited movies. And the last thing is, when in our load favorites data, forgot to change all of these. Alright, there you go. Now let's run this and see what happens. So we have no favorited movies. Let's sort by popularity. Movie's still favorited. Let's favorite another movie. Let's try that again. Occasionally it will do that, and I'm not exactly sure why. But I think this will solve the issue. Right now, when you're storing data in the database, there's a not null constraint here in our movies provider. For each attribute, We have text not null. If we just take out this not null constraint, there won't be an exception. Now let's look to see if these movies are favorited. And here they are. Let's unfavorite this, and it's gone. Let's unfavorite this. You have no favorites movies. Alright, perfect. Looks like our app works. Thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you learned a lot from it. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe.